Well, howdy. So, looking out down on Bishop, California, right here from the foothills of the Eastern Sierra, getting ready to go up to the highest road in California. Highest road in California? How did you get to the highest road from California when the last episode was highest road in Idaho? Well, once I came down through in Idaho there, I came down into the Boise area, met up with Crystal, and if she looks kind of familiar, maybe this clip will jog your memory. Remember at towards the end of the last walk across America #2, coming out of the swamp? Yeah, that's Crystal. So I met up with her here there in Idaho, and then after that, it took about a week to drive through the back roads of Nevada. And then I got here into Bishop, California, resupplied, and then just spent the night up here on the hill. Got a nice little moonrise view last night. And so now it's on the way to the highest road in California and something that's really old. What can that be? I mean, really, really, really old. Let's go take a look. All right, I pulled off the road here for a second and I want to show you something. I've always been intrigued about what you're going to see here. Pretty, isn't it? So I've been coming up here since I was a kid. This is the Owens Valley right here. And this is the Sierra Nevada. Looking west, and then over here, looking at the White Mountains, which actually, I've never been into the White Mountains. I've always just looked at them from afar. So this is going to actually be the first time that we're going to both see the White Mountains together. But anyway, a little bit of a lesson here. South, well, see right down here. No. Right over here is the town of Big Pine. South of that is the town of Lone Pine. And then south of that is a feature called Owens Lake. Now let's come back up here. I'm going to come back to that for a second. But let's come back north here. In the middle of this valley is the Owens River. And then up beyond that place right there, over this hillside, is the town of Bishop, which we just looked out over. And then the Sierra Nevada, they make a left turn and then head up in a northwesterly fashion. But what I wanted to point out is Owens Lake. I'll show you a picture here. Owens Lake, back in the day, that was a full body of water. Full body of water. In fact, back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, there was actually even a ferry service that went across the lake that ferried mining stuff that they got from the mines across to the other side of the valley, which could then be shipped down to Southern California and then to points beyond. Back in the early 1900s, though, the city of LA realized that they were going to have a problem in the future. And that is, they were growing so fast, but they knew they were going to run out of water. So what they concocted a plan led by, I think the guy's name was Mulholland. They concocted a plan that they were going to come up here into the Owens Valley and buy water rights from all the ranchers up here so that they could then secure all the water coming down the eastern side of the Sierras, and the water rights along the Owens River, and then ship it down all into California. And that's what became the Great LA Aqueduct. Well, one of the consequences of all that was that Owens Lake got completely sucked dry to the point where it just became a dusty, old, dry lake bed. And so then what happened over the years, the prevailing winds come from the south. The prevailing winds then would kick up all that dust from the dry lake bed and bring it all north here through the Owens Valley. And they found that people over the years started getting lung problems. And so they finally traced it back to the dust coming from the dry lake bed. So it was a big lawsuit. Not only were the people mad at being hoodwinked back in the early 1900s of losing their water rights, but now they're mad at the LADWP for sucking dry the lake and then causing all the health problems up the valley. So the lawsuit was settled, required LA to let more water flow through the Owens River down into Owens Lake. And slowly but surely, they're not going to fill up the lake, but slowly but surely they're making that whole dry lake bed as damp as possible so that it doesn't kick up the dust and bring it up the valley and cause all the problems. So that's kind of the history of, that's the political history of the Owens Valley. Of course, there's also the geologic history. So the Sierra and to a certain extent the Whites were built from the clashing, the underground clashing of the two plates, the North American plate and then the Pacific plate. And I have a video on that. If you go back, or maybe I'll put a link in the description below. So anyway, that friction caused all the volcanic and magma activity that built up the Sierra Nevada, which lifted up that section here, and then it formed a deep valley here, which eventually started filling with sediment from the alluviation from both sides, as well as the depositing of deposits of stuff from the Owens River coming through here. But something else that's relatively recent in the geologic history, and I think I also described this in another video last year, and I'll put another link to that video as well. As you know, everybody talks about the San Andreas Fault being the big daddy of the earthquake faults, and it's going to cause California to slide off into the ocean. Well, what's becoming a new theory is that in the place where the Garlock, I'll put another picture here, in the place where the Garlock Fault and the San Andreas Fault come together, they're beginning to realize that maybe a lot of the stress and pressure now is shifting over from the San Andreas Fault to the east side of the Sierras here, and they're calling this the Walker Lane. And the Walker Lane roughly starts where the Garlock and the San Andreas Faults come together, and then follow the Eastern Sierra all the way up to along, basically, if you look at a map, following Highway 395, up to Topaz Lake in Nevada. And so basically, looking from the south, looking from the south, following all along from the Sierra, following the eastern part of the Sierra, up through the Owens Valley here, in between the Sierra and the Whites here, and making the turn around the bend, and then continuing up to Topaz Lake, which is on the way to Reno. they're finding that the stresses from the San Andreas Fault, I believe this is the interpretation. They're transferring over to the Walker Lane area. So what's the significance of that? Well, I guess if you wanted to buy future beachfront property, you wouldn't buy it along the San Andreas Fault because that's going to be an island in the middle of an island. I guess you're going to want to buy it here, maybe along the White Mountains. So, so anyway, that's the future. That's the kind of the political and geological stories of this whole area here. And I've always been fascinated, like I said in the beginning here, coming up as a kid, hiking up in the Sierras, and just traveling here and looking at all this geologic wonder, you know. And never had a chance to get up to the highest road in California, so guess we're going to do it today. And we're going to see something old, like I told you. So let's continue. Did you know bristlecone trees can live to be almost 5,000 feet? Start over here. Did you know that bristlecone pine trees can live to almost